The apartment trembled with the sound of Anna's scream, sharp and raw, as she clutched her 7-year-old son Daniel close to her chest, his small hands gripping her shirt in silent fear. Michael, her ex-husband, glared at her, his face twisted with fury, before storming out of the doorway. The door slammed so hard it shook the frame, and the echo lingered like thunder rolling through the silent walls. Sirens wailed faintly outside, distant but unnerving, painting the night with tension. Anna's heartbeat raced, her breath shallow as the weight of betrayal pressed down, every choice she had made leading to this unbearable moment. Daniel's wide eyes reflected confusion and terror, his innocence caught in a storm he couldn't understand. She whispered, "I won't let anyone hurt you again," but her words felt fragile against the chaos unraveling around them. In that instant, her world shifted forever. The air seemed heavy, each second stretching into eternity, as Anna realized this was not just an ending, but the beginning of a war for her child's future. The silence that followed was crushing, and Anna stood frozen, her body tense, heart still racing. She looked around at the toys scattered on the floor, the dishes piled high in the sink, and the laundry left undone. Every detail screamed of her daily sacrifices, the quiet battles no one else saw. She whispered to herself, "This is all for him," her eyes fixed on Daniel, who sat on the couch, his small frame curled up, face pale with fear. The weight of her loneliness pressed down, but beneath it was a fire, a determination to protect her son no matter the cost. Each tear that slid down her cheek was a silent vow. She had endured sleepless nights, double shifts, and the suffocating ache of betrayal, but she would not break. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her chest, yet her resolve grew sharper with every passing second. Daniel looked at her with wide eyes, whispering, "Mom, will he come back?" His voice trembled, and Anna knelt beside him, brushing his hair back with gentle fingers. She said softly, "No one will ever take you from me." Her words were steady, but her heart ached with the weight of the promise. She thought of the battles yet to come, of the courts, the lawyers, and the whispers of those who doubted her. Yet she saw her son's face, and knew why she had to endure it all. His innocence, his fragile hope, gave her strength. The thunder outside roared as if echoing the storm in her chest, but Anna pulled Daniel into her arms again, holding him tight. She whispered, "You are my everything," her tears falling into his hair. For Anna, love was both shield and sword, the only thing keeping her from collapsing. The night dragged on, heavy with silence, broken only by Daniel's breathing as he drifted to uneasy sleep. Anna sat at the edge of the couch, staring at the worn carpet, her mind racing. Memories of Michael's betrayal flooded back, the lies, the shouting, the years of broken trust. Her chest tightened as she realized that this night was only the beginning. The custody battle loomed over her like a shadow she couldn't escape. She thought of courtrooms filled with strangers judging her worth as a mother, the cold eyes of authority deciding her son's future. Her jaw tightened, and she clenched her fists, whispering to herself, "I won't lose him." The storm outside grew louder, lightning flashing against the window, as if the world itself raged with her. She knew the path ahead would test her to the core, but she refused to break. The echo of the door slam replayed in Anna's mind, each memory striking like a hammer against her chest. She walked to the window and stared out at the city lights blurred by rain, her reflection faint in the glass. She thought of the years she spent alone, raising Daniel while Michael drifted in and out of their lives like a storm. Anger and grief mixed in her veins, but so did determination. She pressed her palm against the cold glass, whispering, "Never again." Behind her, Daniel stirred in his sleep, murmuring softly. Anna turned to watch him, her expression softening, her heart tightening with love and fear. The world outside was cruel, filled with betrayal, but inside this small room, she vowed to build a fortress around her child. The storm may rage, but she would fight it all. For him. Always for him. The next morning, Anna forced herself out of bed, her eyes burning from another sleepless night. She dressed quickly, tied her dark hair back, and slipped into her worn jacket, preparing for another long shift at the office. The fluorescent lights above her desk hummed as stacks of paperwork blurred together. Her mind wandered to Daniel, sitting in class with his fragile smile, unaware of the storm that hovered around them. She typed furiously, each keystroke like a battle against exhaustion, her co-workers casting curious glances but saying nothing. The phone rang sharply, snapping her back, and she picked it up with trembling fingers. On the other end was her boss, his tone clipped, demanding answers about missed deadlines and warning her about her slipping performance. Anna swallowed her pride, apologizing softly, knowing that every paycheck mattered. She hung up, pressing her palms into her eyes, whispering, "I can't lose this too." Her shoulders sagged under invisible weight, but her resolve clung stubbornly to the thought of her son's future. Later that evening, Anna met her longtime friend Sarah at a quiet cafe, hoping for comfort. Sarah, who had once been her anchor, looked uneasy, her eyes darting to the door as if she wanted to be anywhere else. Anna leaned forward, her voice low as she shared the events of the previous night, her hands trembling as she described Michael's rage. Instead of sympathy, Sarah's response was hesitant, her words sharp, carrying a hidden edge. Anna felt her chest tighten as Sarah revealed she had been speaking with Michael, offering him advice during the custody talks. The betrayal stung deeper than she could have imagined, twisting like a knife. She whispered, "How could you?" as Sarah avoided her gaze. The clatter of dishes and the chatter of strangers around them felt like cruel reminders of how alone she suddenly was. Anna's heart shattered again, not just from her ex-husband's cruelty, but from losing the trust of the one friend she thought she could depend on. The following week, Anna found herself in a sterile law office, her stomach twisting as she signed forms she barely understood. Across the table sat Michael with his lawyer, their confident smirks a cruel contrast to her trembling hands. The lawyer's voice droned on about custody arrangements, visitation rights and responsibilities, but all Anna heard was the possibility of losing Daniel. She stole a glance at Michael, who avoided her eyes, his jaw set in cold determination. Anna wanted to scream, to remind him of the nights she stayed awake with their son when he never showed, of the sacrifices she made while he walked away. Instead, she clenched her fists under the table, biting her lip until it bled. The lawyer asked her a question, and she nodded numbly, praying her own lawyer would find the strength she felt slipping. When the meeting ended, Anna left the building shaking, the city's noise overwhelming, her chest burning with silent rage. That night, Anna returned home to find Daniel curled up on the couch, clutching his stuffed toy tightly. He looked up with tired eyes and whispered, "Mom, why are you sad?" Her chest ached at his innocence, the weight of her fight pressing harder with his question. She sat beside him, brushing his hair back, trying to force a smile through her tears. She told him softly, "I'm just tired, but I'll always be here." His small hand slipped into hers, giving her strength in a way words could not. Outside, the rain tapped against the window, steady and relentless, echoing her fears. Anna wanted to hide the truth from him, to shield him from the storm of legal battles and betrayals, but she knew his heart already sensed the cracks. She leaned down, kissing his forehead, whispering promises she would never allow herself to break. Love, fragile but fierce, filled the room like armor against despair. Following day, Sarah knocked on Anna's door, her face pale with regret. Anna hesitated before opening it, her heart torn between anger and longing for the comfort of friendship. Sarah's voice trembled as she apologized, admitting her mistake, but Anna's trust had been fractured. She listened, arms crossed tightly, while Daniel peeked from behind her legs, sensing the tension. Sarah pleaded for forgiveness, swearing she only wanted to help, but Anna's eyes hardened, her voice low as she said, "You chose his side." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument, the distance between them too wide to bridge. Sarah's eyes filled with tears before she turned and walked away, leaving Anna in the doorway, clutching Daniel's small hand. The bond they once shared felt lost to betrayal, another thread in the fragile fabric of Anna's world unraveling. She closed the door, whispering to herself, "It's just us now," as Daniel leaned against her leg. The custody battle grew darker as Michael unleashed new tactics, spreading lies about Anna's stability. Gossip circulated through neighbors, whispers that she was unfit, lazy, and reckless. Anna walked through the streets, feeling eyes on her, her dignity eroded with every rumor. At night, she sat at the kitchen table, paperwork spread before her, shaking with exhaustion, but refusing to crumble. She whispered to herself, "They won't take him." Daniel watched her quietly from the doorway, sensing her pain though she tried to hide it. Every cruel word from Michael became fuel for her resolve, though her chest ached with loneliness. She knew the fight was only beginning, but her spirit sharpened like steel against fire. Days later, Anna sat nervously across from a social worker in a sterile office. The woman's clipboard was filled with notes, her eyes sharp as she asked about Anna's routines, finances, and emotional state. Every question felt like a judgment, slicing at her confidence. Anna answered as best she could, steady voice hiding the storm in her chest. She thought of Daniel's laughter, his gentle hugs, the proof of her love, yet she feared none of it mattered in the face of bureaucracy. The social worker's pen scratched the paper, relentless and cold. Anna's palms sweated as she whispered under her breath, "Please see me as more than a file." When the meeting ended, she walked out into the harsh sunlight, blinking back tears, her faith in the system wavering. That night, memories clawed at Anna's mind. She dreamed of Michael's betrayal years ago, his voice shouting, his hands slamming the table while she clutched baby Daniel in her arms. She woke in a cold sweat, the sound of his anger still ringing in her ears. Sitting upright in bed, she pressed her palms to her face, whispering, "I can't go back there." She remembered her mother's warnings, the nights she cried into her pillow, the strength she thought she had lost. The flashbacks weren't just memories, they were chains dragging her down. Yet even through the pain, she saw Daniel's smile in her mind, pulling her back to the present. That image anchored her, reminding her that the past may haunt her, but it would not define her. A week later, Anna met Mark, a kind stranger introduced by a co-worker. They sat across from each other at a small diner, steam rising from untouched coffee cups. Mark spoke softly about his own struggles as a single parent, his words carrying warmth. For the first time in months, Anna felt her chest lighten, a fragile smile crossing her lips. Yet beneath it, doubt lingered. Was this hope or another distraction? Daniel's face flashed in her thoughts, reminding her of the fragile balance she must protect. Mark's gentle humor made her laugh, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in far too long. Still, as she left the diner, her smile faded. Trust was a gift she wasn't sure she could give again. Back home, Anna spread unpaid bills across the kitchen table, her hands shaking as she counted coins from her wallet. The numbers refused to add up, the weight of survival pressing heavier than ever. Daniel peeked into the room, holding his drawing of the two of them smiling under a sun. He handed it to her, his small voice saying, "This is us happy." Tears welled in her eyes as she pulled him close, whispering, "We will be no matter what." His simple faith pierced through her despair, reminding her why she fought so hard. Though her world threatened to crumble, his love was her lifeline. She kissed his forehead, her heart aching yet steady, knowing the battle was far from over, but she could not let him see her break. One stormy evening, Anna found Daniel sitting on the stairs, his stuffed toy clutched tightly, his face pale with worry. He had overheard her tense phone call with her lawyer, and whispered, "Mom, are they going to take me away?" Her chest tightened as she knelt down, pulling him into her arms. She smoothed his hair back, forcing her voice to remain steady though her heart thudded with fear. "No, Daniel, I'll never let that happen," she said, her words trembling between truth and prayer. He buried his face in her shoulder, and she felt the weight of his fragile trust press deeper than any courtroom battle. The storm outside cracked with thunder, echoing the turmoil inside their home. In that moment, she realized her son's innocence was the truest casualty of this war. Anna swore silently to shield him, even if it meant sacrificing every last piece of herself. Days later, Anna discovered a hidden file left carelessly in Michael's briefcase when he dropped Daniel off. Curiosity turned to horror as she read pages of fabricated claims, accusations of neglect, instability, and recklessness. Her hands shook as the words blurred before her eyes, anger and betrayal burning hot in her chest. Michael wasn't just fighting dirty, he was prepared to destroy her. She collapsed onto the couch, clutching the papers tightly, tears streaking her cheeks. Every lie was a weapon aimed at taking Daniel away. She whispered, "How could you do this?" Though he wasn't there to hear. The realization struck her that love had twisted into a war where only one of them could stand victorious. As she stared at the cruel words, her despair slowly hardened into resolve. If Michael wanted a battle, she would rise and fight, even if it broke her to pieces. That night, a knock startled her. When she opened the door, she froze at the sight of a woman she hadn't seen in years, her estranged sister, Emily. The air between them was heavy with unspoken history. Emily's eyes softened, but her voice carried regret as she said, "I heard about the custody fight." Anna's heart twisted with conflicting emotions, longing, anger, and disbelief. For years, Emily had vanished, leaving Anna to shoulder burdens alone. Now she stood in the doorway like a ghost from the past. Daniel peeked from behind Anna, confused by the stranger calling her sister. Emily stepped closer, offering a hesitant smile, holding out an envelope. Anna's instincts screamed caution, yet something in Emily's expression hinted at truth she desperately needed. She whispered, "Why now?" The answer remained suspended in the silence between them. Inside, Emily revealed the truth that shattered the silence of years. Their father, whom Anna had believed absent and indifferent, had been quietly monitoring her life, keeping records, waiting for the right time to intervene. Emily handed her the envelope, filled with documents that could disprove Michael's lies. Anna's hands trembled as she sifted through the papers, her tears mixing relief with suspicion. Emily explained how guilt had kept her away, too ashamed to face the sister she abandoned. Anna's voice cracked as she whispered, "You left me when I needed you most." Emily lowered her gaze, admitting her failures, but insisting she was here to help now. The weight of the revelation left Anna dizzy, an unexpected ally offering salvation, but bound to the very wounds she had tried to bury. Could she trust Emily? Or was this another trap in a life already filled with betrayals? As the night deepened, Anna sat in silence, staring at the documents Emily had left behind. Trust felt like a fragile thread stretched too thin, threatening to snap. Daniel slept peacefully in the next room, unaware of the storm of decisions his mother faced. Anna's thoughts tangled between gratitude for the potential evidence and fear of hidden motives. She whispered, "Do I risk everything on this?" The envelope lay heavy in her lap, a symbol of both hope and danger. The weight of her past, the scars of abandonment, pressed down on her chest. Yet Daniel's innocent face appeared in her mind, reminding her why she fought. Anna clenched her fists, her resolve rising. Whether Emily's intentions were pure or not, she would wield every weapon she could. The war was far from over, but now, she wasn't completely alone. Anna woke the next morning with a new fire in her chest. The night of tears had hardened into resolve. She stood before the bathroom mirror, studying her pale reflection, the lines of exhaustion etched deep. "No more weakness," she whispered. She thought of the documents Emily had left, the chance to strike back at Michael's lies. Fear gnawed at her, but beneath it grew determination. She dressed with deliberate care, pulling on a clean blouse, tying her hair with steady hands, preparing herself for the battles ahead. Every breath became a silent vow that she would not surrender. She imagined Daniel's laughter, his small arms wrapped around her, and it gave her strength. Anna knew the road forward would demand every ounce of her will, but she was ready to rise again, ready to become more than the world believed she could be. That afternoon, Anna sat in her lawyer's office, the envelope of documents resting heavily on the table. Her lawyer flipped through the pages, eyebrows rising as the truth unfolded. "This changes everything," he murmured. Relief flooded Anna's chest, but so did dread. Trusting Emily still felt like walking on shattered glass. Her lawyer assured her that these papers could dismantle Michael's case, exposing his lies in court. Anna listened carefully, her fingers tapping anxiously against the wooden desk. She thought of Daniel's smile, of the nights spent wondering if she was enough, and felt her heart steady. "We fight with this," she said firmly, her voice low but certain. The lawyer nodded, already making notes for the strategy ahead. For the first time in weeks, Anna felt as though she wasn't drowning. She had a weapon now, and she would wield it with everything she had. Later that week, Michael cornered Anna outside the courthouse. His sharp smile carried venom as he leaned closer, whispering threats she barely heard above the city's noise. "You'll lose him," he said coldly. Anna's heart pounded, fear flashing for a moment, but she held her ground. She met his eyes, her voice steady as she answered, "Not this time." His smirk faltered slightly, irritation sparking in his gaze. The weight of their history pressed heavy between them, years of broken promises, betrayal, and wounds that never healed. Yet Anna felt the shift inside her. She wasn't cowering anymore. She turned away, walking with steady steps, leaving him standing in the shadow of his own arrogance. The city traffic roared around them, but inside her chest there was only silence and strength. For the first time, Michael no longer looked like a mountain she could not climb. That evening Emily arrived again, her eyes filled with guilt but also determination. She placed her hand on Anna's arm, saying softly, "You don't have to do this alone." Anna's first instinct was to pull away, but Daniel came running into the room, his face lighting up at the sight of Emily. He hugged her tightly, and Anna froze at the sight of her son finding comfort in the sister she had nearly forgotten. Something inside her softened, though the scars of abandonment still throbbed. She studied Emily's face, searching for deception, but instead saw desperation and honesty. Anna whispered, "If you betray me again, it will destroy me." Emily nodded solemnly, her eyes wet. In that fragile moment, Anna allowed hope to breathe, fragile but real, as the first signs of healing cracked through the wall of distrust. Later that night, Anna tucked Daniel into bed. He handed her a small paper star he had cut out, whispering, "For you, Mom, so you don't forget to wish." Her throat tightened as she kissed his forehead, holding the star close. She sat beside his bed, watching his eyelids grow heavy, his breathing steady. In that quiet room, Anna felt her strength return. The world outside was harsh, filled with betrayal and battles yet to come, but here in this moment she was whole. She whispered to herself, "This is why I fight." Tears filled her eyes, but they were no longer just from pain. They carried hope. She left his room with the paper star in her hand, gripping it like a sacred promise. Though the night stretched long, her heart was steady. Tomorrow she would rise again, stronger than before. The courtroom was silent, except for the shuffle of papers and the soft creak of wooden benches. Anna sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded tightly, her heart pounding as the judge entered. Michael sat across from her, his suit sharp, his smirk faint but present, as if victory was already his. Anna fought to steady her breathing, remembering Daniel's face as he kissed her cheek that morning. Her lawyer leaned close, whispering encouragement, but it barely reached through the roar in her head. The bailiff announced the case, and suddenly her life was on trial. Every glance from the gallery felt like a judgment, every tick of the clock a hammer against her ribs. She closed her eyes briefly and whispered silently, "For him." When she looked up, she found strength in the thought of Daniel's laughter, his fragile trust, and she knew she could not falter now. This was her battlefield, and she would fight. Michael's lawyer rose first, his voice smooth and practiced as he painted Anna as unstable, irresponsible, and unfit. Each word pierced her like a blade, twisting the truth into poison. He pointed to fabricated evidence, his tone dripping with certainty. Anna's hands clenched beneath the table, her jaw tightening as tears threatened. Her lawyer rose to object, pushing back against the lies, and the room became a battleground of words. Michael sat watching with calculated calm, his eyes darting occasionally to Anna, waiting to see her break. She refused to give him that satisfaction. She lifted her chin, focusing on Daniel's image in her mind, refusing to crumble. Though her chest ached and her throat burned, she stayed silent, letting the truth within her simmer until it was her turn to speak. The weight of every insult stacked upon her shoulders, yet her spirit hardened like stone. She was ready. When the social worker took the stand, Anna's stomach knotted. The woman spoke clinically, describing visits to Anna's home, questioning her financial stability and emotional stress. Anna wanted to shout, to remind the court that love could not be measured in spreadsheets, but she stayed composed. The lawyer's questions twisted each answer, painting her exhaustion as neglect, her tears as weakness. Anna's pulse raced, her breath shallow, yet she kept her eyes fixed on the judge. She thought of every night she stayed awake for Daniel, every sacrifice she made, and it steeled her. When asked if she wished to cross-examine, her lawyer gently declined, sparing Anna from tearing open wounds. Still, the sting remained, every word echoing doubts she already carried. But beneath the sting, there was resolve. She whispered silently, "You don't know my love. You'll never take that from me." At last, it was Anna's turn. She stood, her knees trembling, but her voice steady, as she raised her hand for the oath. The lawyer asked about her struggles, her sacrifices, and she answered with raw honesty. She spoke of the double shifts, the sleepless nights, the quiet moments of comfort she gave Daniel when fear threatened him. Her voice cracked but did not falter. Every word became a weapon of truth, stripping away Michael's lies. She spoke of betrayal, of carrying burdens alone, of building a life from nothing for the sake of her child. The courtroom fell silent, even Michael shifting uneasily in his chair. Tears welled in Anna's eyes, but she held them back, finishing with a single vow. "I will never stop fighting for my son." The words hung in the air, heavy, unshakable, and unbreakable. It was no longer just testimony. It was her soul laid bare. The climax came with the final confrontation. Anna's lawyer presented Emily's documents, exposing Michael's lies with devastating precision. Each false claim crumbled under evidence, and Michael's composure cracked. His voice rose in anger, his denial unraveling into desperation. The judge's stern eyes silenced him, the gavel striking once to restore order. Anna sat frozen, breath caught in her chest, as the weight of weeks of fear lifted slightly. Michael's smug mask was shattered, his confidence replaced by rage. Anna's lawyer concluded with quiet certainty, reminding the court of the truth that had always been there, Anna's unwavering love and sacrifice. As silence settled, Anna reached for the small paper star Daniel had given her, tucked inside her pocket. She closed her eyes and whispered, "We're almost there." The outcome was not yet spoken, but the tide had shifted. For the first time, victory seemed possible. The judge's voice echoed across the courtroom as he announced custody in Anna's favor. For a moment the world stopped, silence pressing against her chest until the words sank in. Relief washed through her, but so did grief, because victory had come at a heavy cost. Her hands trembled as she clutched Daniel's drawing, the paper star folded neatly inside her pocket. Michael's face was pale with fury, his jaw clenched, but she no longer looked at him as a threat. He was part of her past, a storm that she had survived. Anna closed her eyes briefly, whispering, "It's over," though deep down she knew the scars would linger. She looked toward her lawyer, who gave her a nod of quiet approval. The battle had been won, but she understood it was not triumph that defined this moment. It was survival. For Daniel, she had endured, and for Daniel, she would rebuild. As the courtroom emptied, Michael lingered behind, his shoulders rigid, his eyes burning with resentment. Anna walked past him, her steps steady, Daniel's small hand clutched tightly in hers. For the first time, she didn't feel fear in his presence. His power had been stripped away, replaced by the consequences of his choices. He called her name once, his voice low and sharp, but she didn't turn. Instead, she kept moving, Daniel's grip anchoring her to the present. The corridor outside smelled of old wood and polish, the chatter of voices fading behind her. She felt the weight of every trial, every sleepless night pressing against her bones, but her spirit remained unbroken. She whispered to Daniel, "We're free now," and he smiled, his innocence radiating through the heavy air. Behind her, the doors closed, cutting off the echoes of Michael's fury, leaving only silence and the faint taste of peace. Back home, the apartment felt different. The cluttered space, once suffocating, seemed lighter as Anna set down her bag, and watched Daniel race to his toys. She leaned against the doorframe, her chest swelling with a fragile sense of peace. Yet the silence carried memories, the betrayals, the courtroom battles, the nights of fear. She pressed her palm to the wall, whispering, "We made it," though she knew scars remained. The storm had ended, but the wreckage was still scattered around her heart. She walked into the kitchen, running her fingers across the counter where she had once cried in despair, and allowed herself a small smile. Survival didn't erase the pain, but it gave her a chance to heal. And healing, she realized, was its own kind of victory. She glanced at Daniel, who looked up at her with a grin, and for the first time in years, she felt hope. That night, Anna sat on the couch with Daniel curled against her side, his head resting on her arm as they watched a small cartoon flicker on the screen. The glow painted the room in soft colors, the storm outside replaced by calm rain. Daniel whispered, "I love you, Mom," and she kissed his forehead, whispering back, "I love you more." In his innocence, he had no idea of the war she had fought to keep him safe, but his words gave her strength beyond measure. She stroked his hair, breathing deeply, her heart finding rest in his warmth. The world beyond their walls still carried trials, bills, and wounds to mend, but here in this moment, she was whole. His laughter filled the room, erasing the shadows that had haunted her for so long. Anna closed her eyes briefly, savoring the peace. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe without fear. Later that evening, Anna stood quietly by Daniel's bedroom door, watching him sleep. His soft breaths rose and fell, his small body curled beneath the blankets. She placed her hand gently on the doorframe, her reflection faint in the glass of the window beside her. The city lights glittered in the distance, but for once they did not feel threatening. They shimmered with possibility. She whispered to herself, "We're stronger now, and we'll never stop fighting." A real smile broke across her face, free of masks and burdens. She walked to Daniel's bedside, sitting down just long enough to kiss his forehead once more. Then she rose, carrying herself with the quiet strength of a woman who had endured and emerged. The night was calm, the battle over, the future uncertain. But Anna no longer feared it. She had won her freedom, and with Daniel by her side, she was ready to begin again.